Hello, everyone, and welcome to another segment of the PF Warriors video series Lessons Learned, sponsored by FibroGen Incorporated, a leading science-based biopharmaceutical company discovering and developing a pipeline of first-class therapeutics. My name is Shelley Mathis, and today I'll be interviewing my husband, Scott Calhoun. I got a request to interview him from a member who thought that Scott had some very practical things to say about lessons he's learned just living with pulmonary fibrosis. And he shares this with other patients. In fact, many of you who are newly diagnosed may have had a welcome meeting with my husband, Scott, when you first joined the PF Warriors support group. Now, disclaimer, this is in no way meant to be medical advice, just one patient's experiences. So, Scott, welcome to this segment of Lessons Learned.
Thank you, Shelley. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, you've learned a lot of practical things that you do every day to make living with pulmonary fibrosis easier. You often talk about working in your strike zone. What is a strike zone and where did you learn about it?
Well, of course, it's a baseball analogy. The strike zone, of course, is between your shoulders and your knees in baseball lingo. So the idea is you're trying to keep all of your organs, including your important lungs, in the right position to optimize your breathing. So as most of our patients have found, when they bend over to tie their shoes or bend over to pick something up, to say take the clothes out of the dryer, to put them in the basket. And then if they're trying to fold the clothes, the basket's on the floor and their surface that they're holding the clothes on is raised up, they find themselves stooping over a lot and they get out of breath. So working with your strike zone and keeping the idea of a strike zone is you want to keep your work in your strike zone, above your knees and below your shoulders. A lot of people have found, and I have too, that when I shower, I put my hands over my head to wash my hair and I get out of breath. So, I try to keep my hands lower, of course, but showering is not something that you can do in washing your hair is not something you can do with your hands in your strike zone. So I take oxygen, put my oxygen on and go in the shower with my oxygen.
That's good advice. And what did you learn from one of your nurses about the 6-minute walk?
Well, that's a kind of a funny story, but I was like a lot of people thinking that when you start your 6-minute walk, you say, well, how am I supposed to walk? And they tell you initially, just walk at a normal pace and it'll be just fine. So we really aren't going to give you any directions about how to conduct the walk. And so, you start the walk and you're just taking a leisurely pace and you don't desaturate. And what I found out is if you don't have a 6-minute walk that where you desaturate below 88%, you can't be prescribed oxygen. So I found out quickly from my nurse that the goal was to desaturate below 88% so they could prescribe oxygen for me, which I knew that I needed because I was frequently getting short of breath at home and when I was exerting myself. So I thought, well, logically, you exert yourself during the 6-minute walk. So rather than taking a leisurely pace, I walked as quickly as I could, and I did desaturate. I later learned, another lesson that I learned, if you read the American Thoracic Society's guidelines for conducting a 6-minute walk, you'll find that one of the metrics that the doctor uses is how far you travel in your 6-minute walk, and that there's been studies conducted that folks that walk the 6-minute walk and walk less than 200 meters, there's a direct connection between mortality and the number of steps that you take in your 6-minute walk.
So that's a test that patients should try to fail, not do really well on, which.
Yeah, that's what I've told people. I say, you're not looking to pass the test and not desaturate. Interestingly enough, I found that new patients, of course, it's part of the process of of making a paradigm shift in your thinking about yourself. You're thinking, I want to be normal and I want to get well. Well, unfortunately, our disease is relentless, and you really very rarely ever get well or get better. You just simply slowly, progressively get worse, which means that day by day, you're going to need more and more oxygen. And so now your life is with oxygen. So you have to get used to taking that thing with you. Whether it's a tank or a portable, you travel, you move around with your oxygen, and you do need it. So that 6-minute walk is very important in obtaining a prescription so you can be supplied oxygen as a supplemental.
Yes, oxygen is so important, and we see it a lot when we're out now. People are less reluctant to take it with them. I'm happy to see. Also, what did you learn about exercise, the most important muscle groups to exercise?
Well, anybody who's ever exercised, studied the process, or had a personal trainer, or taking classes like pulmonary rehab or cardiac rehab, I've had both, learns that to get to cardio health, you want to use your large muscle groups to get your heart working and raise your heart rate. Your goal in exercising is to get your heart rate up above normal, and that helps to stimulate your cardiovascular system and make it stronger. So the large muscle groups, of course, the largest muscle groups you have are in your legs. So doing things like stair steps, the treadmill, and walking just around your neighborhood. Walking is an excellent exercise. Many respiratory therapists encourage their patients who are sedentary to just get out and walk around their neighborhood, walk the dog, or just take a walk with your wife or your husband.
Or your doggies.
Or your doggies.
Yeah. So after you exercise, if you're feeling short of breath, how do you recover from shortness of breath?
Well, I have a problem with breathing. I get focused on something, and I just stop breathing. I notice, or my breathing gets very slow, particularly if I'm sitting still and maybe sitting at a desk working, or as just my recent experience, sitting in a dental chair and having somebody work on me for an hour. I find that I stop breathing, or I breathe very slowly. So be mindful of your breathing. So if you have gotten short of breath, and even if you have oxygen, well, the first thing I would do is turn the oxygen up. If I'm walking around and I'm on pulse, which my doctor fusses at me about, she says I should use constant oxygen all the time, but I do use pulse just to conserve on my tank. I'll turn the oxygen up to constant flow, and then I'll be still for a while. Usually I'll sit down and relax and simply be mindful of my breathing. And surely enough, within just a minute or so, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling less short of breath. Within 2 or 3 minutes, I've recovered. I desaturate rapidly, and I resaturate rapidly as well. But it's just a constant struggle, to be mindful of my breathing, and so I can conserve and recover quickly.
Is there anything that you could show members? I know sometimes when we've walked at the mall and you've gotten short of breath, you've actually sat down to recover, and you go through some little movements.
Well, sure. It's really quite simple. I'll just move back a little bit. Maybe you'll be able to see see what it looks like. Can you see my knees?
Yes.
Okay. It's important, to be able to see the knees, because that's important. What they taught me in pulmonary rehab was simply to sit down and to relax, get your back straight, put your hands on your knees, palms up, and shoulders back, and maybe tilt your head forward just a little bit. Don't tilt it forward too far, otherwise you're going to restrict your airflow. But this is just simply relaxing your muscles that work with your pulmonary system. Put your hands on your knees and simply lean forward slightly, and then concentrate on your breathing. And use diaphragmatic breathing. Breathe in till you can feel your stomach moving out, and breathe in. Hold it for just a second or so, and then breathe out. And typically, you're wanting to breathe through your nose. Respiratory therapists have told me that breathing through your nose helps warm the air and makes it easier for your respiratory system to make gas exchanges. So breathe through your nose, breathe out through your nose. Now, if you've been exerting and you're really short of breath, then another technique called pursed lip breathing is where you breathe in and then hold it just for a few pulses, and then breathe out through your lips and restricting the air with your lips, which is called pursed lip breathing, like thus. And that helps slow the air down coming out and helps your lungs make more gas exchanges. If you breathe out rapidly, you're dumping out oxygenated air that has had no benefit to you. So it slows the process down.
Okay, that's good advice. And also, we're lucky enough to have these little portable concentrators we can take around like an Inogen. And there's been a lot of confusion on some of our Facebook pages about how much oxygen you actually get through these little portable devices. And is there anything interesting that you've learned about understanding really how much oxygen you're getting when you use those devices?
Well, most of the oxygen, the portable oxygen concentrators that are available to patients, the ones that seem to be the most popular, are the ones that you carry around. They weigh less than 10 pounds typically, at the heaviest. And then there's the kind that is kind of like a roll around or carry on baggage that has wheels on it, and you can roll it around. The difference, I mean, the typical ones that are available, the ones that you carry around, you're not going to get more than 1.5 liters out of those total. There's a lot of people who say, well, I can get 5 liters out of mine because it has 5 settings. And of course, we're always having to instruct, and advise our new members, that are just getting started with oxygen therapy, that a pulse setting is on a portable is not equivalent to 1 liter. So it can be analyzed, and it's sort of a complicated algorithm, but you could calculate how much you're getting at each pulse rate. But it's a complicated metric, or not metric, a complicated
Formula.
Yeah, thank you. Of breaths per minute, the amount of milliliters of oxygen per bolus, so on and so forth. But nevertheless, a portable can't provide you more than about a liter or 1.5 liters. For instance, the Inogen 5 or G5, Inogen 1 G5 portable, its total output is 1.26 liters per minute. So it's not simply dividing it by 5 to get to know how many liters per minute you're getting. It's that formula that I was referencing that has to do with breaths per minute, milliliters of oxygen per bolus, so on and so forth. Now, a roll around, typically they can provide 3 liters per minute constant flow. So I think they have maybe settings of 1, 2, and 3 liters per minute constant flow, but they also have from 5 to 6, maybe even more pulse settings. Of course, with the pulse setting, you're conserving, so you have so much battery life in both conditions. You only have so much battery life, and you can use pulse to conserve the battery. But the common misconception is this whole idea that that the settings are liters per minute and equivalent, and that's not true.
Well, one other question. You've been properly diagnosed since 2014. Is there anything, when you think back on all the pulmonary fibrosis things you've been through, is there anything you wish you had done differently?
Oh, that's a good question. Anything I could have done differently? Well, yeah, I suppose the most important thing is exercise. That's a constant struggle for me, and I know it is for a lot of people as well. I've never been a gym rat. I do not enjoy exercising. I like activity. I like moving around and doing things. When I was younger, I loved to play baseball. I loved to run track, to run. And I particularly learned to love to bicycle. I was a very avid bicyclist. I used to go on these large organized rides where you'd ride 100 kilometers or more, and really did enjoy that. But as I got older and I had a desk job, I gained weight and didn't exercise, and the result was gaining weight. So the struggle is to apply the things and incorporate the things that I learned in pulmonary and cardiac rehab, using those tools that I learned and having a gym membership or having home exercise equipment and simply doing it regularly. And what I learned, the biggest thing I learned about exercising, because I have done it and I have done it on a regular basis for a long period of time. And the benefits is you feel better, and it supports your entire system, and provides you with a better ability to combat the disease. So it is probably one of three things that is important to surviving the disease. But I guess the main thing that I learned was exercising and doing it consistently. What I finally distilled down, and I'm about to begin that process again, starting with another session of cardiac rehab, is simply disciplining yourself to do it on a regular basis. My formula is I do it 3 times a week for an hour at a session. And if I do that and do that consistently over a period of time, it really makes a meaningful difference in my vitality and my ability to combat the disease and support my wellness.
Absolutely. And thank you, Scott, for sharing your wisdom and the lessons that you've learned on your path through pulmonary fibrosis. And thank you, FibroGen, for supporting this Lessons Learned series. And thank all of you who have joined today to see this segment, and hope to see you next week. Bye for now.